So, you've studied really hard all your life, you sit your exams, you aced them, and congratulations, you've graduated and you got your degree. And now you got your first job, you're working really hard, you love your job, and finally you get paid. You've got your first paycheck. How do you spend it? Money makes me feel a little bit nervous, anxious, and just generally really weird because I've never been taught how to manage my finances. If you're like me and you want to be a little bit better with your finances and you're just starting out, let me save you some time and share with you what I found so far. Just a quick disclaimer, this is not financial advice at all. So if that's it, please seek a independent and licensed financial advisor if you need advice, and let's get going. So the first thing like any millennial would do was to look things up on the internet and social media. The internet wasn't really helpful because it mostly consisted of articles talking about how to save money at the vets, which is fair enough. And then I saw this website, I clicked on it, and sure, it looked cool, but I didn't think too much of it. So like any millennial, I decided to doom scroll on social media instead. Until the algorithm did its magic, of course, and I came across this website, VetU, again. And then I saw this vetcan's Instagram about pay rises, basically a vet professional out there talking about personal finance. And I was like, hold up, I need to check this out. Growing up, money has always been like a negative kind of topic. Oh, you shouldn't discuss your money. Why do you want to earn so much money? That's evil or something like that. But I feel like money is more like a tool that can help us whenever, or even help our friends and family if they're in need.
Yeah, I totally agree. We're definitely brought up to not really want to talk about it. And I don't know about you, but I didn't really talk about money with my parents, really. They've certainly sort of not been very forthcoming with sort of like these are sort of things you need to think about, apart from just to like save birthday money and things like that. So it is definitely like something that if you want to start talking about it, you can just start talking about it and there's actually nothing wrong with it. And I definitely started talking, especially about salaries and things, a lot more in my last practice. And at first it was just a bit weird. And then we all just got really used to it. And by the end, we were kind of all like, oh, well, what are you on? Or what would you want to be on next year? And like, what are you going to ask for in your salary review? And things like that, which is just like really empowering and really useful because you want to know and you want to know what people are talking about. It's really important just to start talking about it. And even like amongst friends, I've started talking more about investing and money saving and when I want to retire and things like that, which we would have never before talked about. But it does, if you're like interested in yourself, it's definitely something I think you just got to like start talking about and hope that people are on board as well. And most of the time they are. The other thing is that as vets, we're really educated, like really clever, educated people. And it's scary having something that's so big that we just don't know about because we've not been taught about. So I found it like embarrassed. I don't know about you, but I was embarrassed that I didn't know about finances or know how to invest or how should I save my money properly. And that was a really big thing, is that it's actually not that hard once you start learning about it. But it seems so jargon filled and so sort of elitist about finances that if you're like, oh, maybe I should know about it because I feel like I'm quite a like well-educated normal person, but it's just embarrassing that I don't know. It's just because no one's ever been taught.
First is the concept of negotiating salaries. I know. When I first got my job, I didn't even think about negotiating any form of salary because I'm a new grad, and apparently people do negotiate, and I feel like more people should talk about it so that we share this knowledge and learn how to value ourselves. Why should we negotiate our salaries? Is it really important to negotiate? I don't want to sound very money minded when I first start out my job and I want to be on the same team with all of my colleagues. So to me, negotiating a salary from the start feels very confronting and feels counterintuitive when I want to accept a job. But according to Alice,
Negotiating salary for new grads, I think it's really really important, but you don't think it's like the done thing. And I certainly felt like when I got my first job that whatever money they were going to offer me was like amazing and I would just take whatever they offered. But I listened to a really good webinar by Paul Horwood, who's the at Leadership Vet, if you ever see him on Instagram. But he did say that if you negotiate your first job by even like 2k, if you hadn't negotiated that little tiny difference to start off with, that sets you on such a huge like different salary trajectory for the rest of your life, because you'll always want to negotiate from that slightly higher figure, and then you get a higher figure still, you get a higher figure still, whereas that person started from a low figure, so then they might negotiate the year after to the one that the original person started off, and the difference in salaries is huge. He does like a whole like graph to show you where they would end up being, and it's massive, and it's only like 2k. I think the main thing that people need to remember, especially when they're starting out, is that the actual cost to the practice to hire someone and recruit someone new is so much that you asking for just a couple of grand more is actually not that big a deal to them in the long run. I think he said it costs them around 10 to 15k sometimes to hire.
Really? Wow.
Yeah, it's a lot, because they have to really take into account advertising costs to advertise the job, time that the vet who would be doing stuff like clinical work can't do it because he's doing admin work, talking to vets on the phone, and then interviewing. And then it's also training up that person, because that person's not going to be up to speed and actually like earning the practice that much money when they start anyway, for at least a couple of months, especially when you're a new grad, which is totally normal. But that like lost revenue is actually so much to the practice. So you're worth a lot. So if they are wanting to hire another vet, they're forking out a lot of money, and they want to hire someone quite quickly who's good and they know what they're doing. So if you're just going to say, well, I want, I don't know, 34 instead of 32, they know you're the right person to practice, you really like them, it's going to save them another couple, like a few grand, just like in terms of hiring someone and waiting for all that time to advertise, then you might as well ask. I think that's such a big thing. It's really hard to sort of push yourself into that position, I think, when you're negotiating.
Out. I mean, I wouldn't even dare have that conversation.
I know.
I just got one with the contract and I was like, okay, cool, I'll sign it.
Yeah, no.
Which is something maybe people shouldn't, well, it depends on everyone's situation, but like if you listen to Alice, it sounds like there is scope for negotiation. So definitely
always. I think, and know that people expect you to negotiate. That's the biggest thing I've learned, and I wouldn't ever have thought that before, but people will expect you to negotiate. So if they're like expecting you to do it, then you feel like it's not awkward, because they know you're going to ask at some point. And that makes me feel better, because if you didn't, they're like, oh, well, she didn't even try and negotiate, or whatever, that's fine, we'll give her the base rate. But if you know that they're going to expect you to ask anyway, just ask, because it's not going to be awkward. And the other thing I think is that if new grads are quite comfortable about talking about money in general, i.e. for themselves, then that practice knows that they're going to be also comfortable talking about money with clients, which you're going to do all day long. And you obviously know you're talking about money all the time. How can we make this like cheaper? How much does this cost? Can we do these x-rays, but it's going to cost this? And money is just like the bread and butter of you working as a vet, isn't it? So if you're like,
favorite part, but unnecessary, it's unnecessary part. Yeah,
totally. So if you're like really happy, I want this, I'm really expecting this side of money, and you're just very matter of fact, business like, it's not personal, then they will know as well that actually you're going to be really good at dealing with clients and that sort of thing. You're not going to be shying away from money in that respect too. I think that's another thing to think about for new grad.
Particularly, I was really intrigued with one of the phrases that she would use to negotiate salary. So how do you ask? What do you actually say? Because I always feel like you have to justify any request, and the thing is, if you're just starting out, I guess I would be more shy because I don't really know.
Totally. It depends whether you're in person negotiating, like in the job interview in person, or whether you are, say, they've offered you the job and they've offered you like an X package. And then you can email back and say, actually, so what I prefer probably as well, because it's not in person, is if you're doing it over an email, they come back up with you to say, okay, we can offer you, say, for example, 31k plus £1,000 of CPD and a 1 in 5 rota. And you could then reply back, great, thank you so much. I'm so excited to join the team. I really appreciate your offer. I was actually looking at a total compensation more within the range of, also more like the sort of number of, or whatever you want, 33 plus a £1,000 CPD and whatever 1 in 4 rota, and go from there. But remember, there's also different things you can negotiate with. So not just your base salary, but rota, your days in lieu for doing on call, your amount of CPD, everything you can sort of look at, holiday time. there's things you can move around. So it's sort of like a shifting chart, and they can say, oh, well, we can offer you 32, but you can have 1,500 in CPD. And you go, oh, okay, maybe that's all right.
Or even just the thought of putting a salary review in a first few months down the line of your first job.
And then you can also, if you're not completely happy, but actually it sounds like a really good practice and you really like them, why don't you say, great, I'd love to accept that, thank you. Can we look at putting a date in the diary for a pay review in 6 months' time? And then it's like in there, you can then get a bit more sort of evidence behind you from those 6 months to say, like, listen, I've been doing this, I've been doing this really well, I've learned this, and I'm like doing this for the practice in these 6 months. What can you do now? And if they agree to that, then you sort of know that, okay, they might be quite flexible and looking at doing that quite soon. So that's also a good help. I don't know if that's any help at all.
That is such a great tip. I didn't even think about negotiating like even just 6 months down the line, because I know as a new grad, I started out like maybe my level was like down here. Then now I'm definitely more confident in doing lots of things. I don't need as much sort of assistance. Like I've been sort of 18 months out. I'm more confident with like surgeries and stuff. So that's actually a very good tip. I actually feel quite empowered. I hope everyone else who's watching feels empowered to actually just push yourself there and try, because I feel like the worst they can do is say no, isn't it? I don't think they will reject your application.
No, definitely not. And if it's a no, then like that's fine, and you can then, like I say, look at other things that you can negotiate with. And if it's a no and it's a massive like non-negotiable on the money for you, then there are so many jobs out there that will probably pay you more as well. And that's also the thing, is that vets are in such high demand that the ball is in your court at the moment for salary, and especially for new grad. The new grad salaries are so much better than what I was looking at when I was graduating. That was just 5 years ago. It's like hugely different. So you do have this power to negotiate, I would say.
So I hope our conversation empowers you to, schedule in that review with your line manager and get that raise that you deserve. The next point I find really crucial in our profession that no one even talks or mentions about is income protection. Being in the vet profession is actually quite a hazardous, occupational hazard kind of job, where you are exposed to unpredictable animals who some can love you to bits and, death by kisses, or actually don't really like you that much and can attack you unpredictably despite you doing your best. So income protection is basically something like pet insurance, where you pay a little sum of money every month, something around 25 to 30 pounds, for example. And essentially, if you have an accident or you get injured at work or outside of work, apparently.
If you get injured even outside of work, so that's the really good thing as well, because when I first learned about it, I thought it was just like inside the workplace accident or injury that you would then get covered for. But anything at all, so anything that's going to stop you working, obviously at work is probably the more dangerous place for us than outside of work, for all the reasons you've just described above. So if you do get injured and you can't work for however long, lots of people, especially if they've got young families or new grads like yourself who don't have sort of dependents that you can lean on, you've got rent to pay, you've got food to pay, you've got bills to pay. And if you can't earn that salary for 3 months, 6 months, then basically your income protection will pay out. They won't pay your full salary, like monthly salary, but they'll pay a large percentage of it. So you will get plenty of money in order to live off, really. And that is just the main thing. And I didn't know about this until probably 2 years. I was 2 years graduated, and it was really only probably because of word of mouth that I heard about it. And then with everything else and the whole like personal finance journey for me got a little more involved. But it's definitely something they don't really tell vets when they graduate. I don't know if did you get told about this at vet school?
No, I didn't even know it existed until like I came across a Instagram post at VetU or something like that. No, exactly. I feel like it's so important. Why don't they even mention that term and be like, go and Google it yourself, but there is this term.
Yeah, exactly. And I've met other vets who've been graduated like 10 years and they had never heard or that knew that it existed either. So it is a bit crazy, but it's so important. And it's like you said, you don't get a lot of, at my previous job, we got, I think, 10 days of sick pay. And then you'd go on to like the basic statutory sick pay, which is really nothing. And you can't live off of it really, especially if you've got rent, a mortgage or whatever to pay for, especially, and even if people are depending on you too. So it's a massive, massive thing. You can also get critical illness protection, which is sort of often paired with it. So if you get any major disease or injury, like a fracture, for for example, then they'll give you like a lump sum payout, and it sort of depends on the amount they give you, depends on how bad your injury or illness is and so where you've hurt yourself. So different parts of the body and different illnesses are scored in this strange way. But for example, my friend broke her leg. I think she was off for about 5 months, but she got like a 6 grand payout, just like a lump sum. And that's really just like a peace of mind. You've got some money, you can pay whatever, you don't need to sort of stress about bills and the immediate term when you just know you don't know what's going on, you're in and out of hospital, you know you're not going to be working anytime soon. So you just have some money in the bank to see you through, and then the income protection just keeps you going on. And that income protection can keep going on for a really, really long time if you do need it, like years and years. Hopefully that wouldn't be the case that you would need it for years and years. That is there if you need it.
Oh my goodness, I can't imagine, because if you have a broken arm, that's it. You can't really,
No.
it'll take you some time to get used to it, but also it's not safe if you're working with a broken arm handling animals. So
I know, exactly. And it's really not something like jobs like ours, we can't just sort of sit by a desk and be someone that can not do a lot. It's so physical, isn't it? So you'd be totally screwed.
So where can a vet find information about income protection? Is there any like resources you would recommend? Obviously, I'll put a disclaimer, we are not financial advisors. We are people sharing financial knowledge,
yes,
our personal finance journey. But yeah, but like, where's a good place? I feel like VetU was really helpful.
I would say VetU, yeah, they're so good. And they have Ruth Downs, she is an independent financial advisor, and she's really, really cool. I think what's great about her is that she knows what sort of risks us vets come face to face with every day. So it's really important that she knows what kind of injuries we might be at risk with, and then she can use that to give you the best sort of idea of what kind of plans you can take out and what your options are. We probably lead a lot more riskier lives. We definitely do lead a lot more riskier lives than most of our sort of other counterparts in different industries.
Exactly.
So it's
and no one talks about it until like now.
Yeah, exactly. And they're really good at VetU. I think you can have like a free chat with Ruth with no obligations to take anything out if you don't want to, and she will just talk to you for free for like half an hour if you just book in with her via them. So definitely worth checking out.
Cool. And also, just for everyone's knowledge, this is not sponsored by VetU.
Yeah, we just love them.
But that's amazing resource.
What seems to be the trouble?
Next are some rapid fire tips that Alice shared with us on how to be more financially literate and things she would have done differently when she first started out as a new grad.
I would say, like we've touched on before, you can negotiate everything and anything. So definitely negotiate. I would also say that just start investing as soon as you can. I know that we haven't really gone on to investing in too much depth, and it sounds really scary, and we can definitely do that another time. But if you can find out about it, you don't have to be an expert to start. You just have to really know the bare minimum. But the longer you can start investing, the better, because of compound interest, and that just grows your money so much quicker than if you started 20 years down the line. So I wish I'd started when I was like 20, but I'm 27, or I was 26 when I started, so I'm making the most of it, and I think that's definitely worth mentioning. You can also, as a new grad, which I didn't realize, you can increase your pension amount you put into your pension, and that's literally just either, if you're part of a corporate, you can email your HR, say please can I increase my pension contribution, and that's just obviously tax-free amount of money going into savings and being invested for you, so you might as well. And even if it's, I've just increased it from like 5%, which was the bare minimum, to 9%. So it's so small, but over time, like over 30 years, that's going to make a massive difference. So that's something you can easily do. I didn't realize that you could increase your pension amount when I was a new grad. I thought that was some people in an office somewhere decided.
Pension feels like something so far to think about that, doesn't really matter. But when you say you pay 9% of your pension, that means you take 4% less pay home.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It's actually like a really small amount. I don't know how much that is actually in ratio of my salary, but you barely notice it. And the other thing is that because you don't get it in your pay packet, like it doesn't get into your bank account before it's taken out, so you don't even know what you're missing, which is also a good way to save. So yeah, that's literally it. It's really simple.
Basically, that 4% of pay is not taxed, and it can continue to grow over years and years.
Exactly. Yeah. And you can obviously increase it to however high amount you want. You can do it to 10%, 11%, whatever. Obviously you want enough money to take home
pay
to
your
live
bills
off,
and
but,
stuff.
It's such a small amount. What else would I say? Income protection, 100%, 1,000%, and definitely having an emergency fund, but an emergency fund is just having a lump of money in a really accessible savings account that is enough for you to live off for about 3 to 6 months. And some people have 3 months worth, some people have 6 months worth. So all you need to do is just calculate how much you need for your bills, your rent, your food, petrol if you need petrol. Because if at any point you happen to have lost your job suddenly, or your car broke down, or something in your house needs repairing, then you have a lump of money just sat there as cash ready for you to use no matter what. And that's always useful, because instead of having to worry what's going to happen next month, or oh no, my car needs like taxing and you just don't have any money, it's always there. And then you can just keep topping up if you need it to like use it, top it up again. If you need to use it, top up again. So yeah, and then definitely the last one is just automate everything and make your life easier. I just set up a direct debit from my account that I get my salary in to everything. So like my savings, my investments, my emergency fund, everything is direct debited out and I don't have to think about it. That's the easiest way to manage your finances, I would say.
That is so smart. Like the direct debit thing, it's genius because you don't even have to stress about it each month because it just does it for you.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
we only have about like 10 minutes left. So I just want to say thank you so much, Alice, for jumping in and like being so spontaneous and joining on this call. I will definitely look forward to doing more talks with you and sharing more knowledge. I hope everybody found this very useful. There's so much awesome knowledge out there. You can go to VetU and we'll link all the resources to your blog and things. Lastly, I feel like we just scratched the surface on this topic about money, but I hope it empowers you to start taking control of your finances. I think the important thing to note is not to be too hard on yourself. You know, maybe you've never known about this, maybe no one in your family talks about it, or even in your friend circle, because let's face it, people feel really awkward talking about money and it's kind of a taboo or, you know, not really a known thing to do. Here is your sign and hopefully a gentle push to help you get started on achieving your adulting goals. Let's keep learning together and I'll see you in the next video.